Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting of July 6, 2021, where we are reconvening from closed session, where direction was given and no action was taken. We are calling this meeting to order for open session. Stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I pledge. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. So moved. I'll second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Moving on to presentations and proclamations. Oroville Docent Association presentation.
Treasurer of the Friends of the Parks. I wear 2 hats tonight. The first hat is to bring you mementos, all of you who are on the City Council, so that you remember our beautiful museums, because we need you to come down and see us. We really want you to come and see what we do. So first of all, let me hand those out. If it's possible, may I approach you with these items? Thank you. Not the least. There's something in there from each of the museums. We need you to come and see us. We need you to see what we're doing. We need you to share in the joy that we have of presenting Oroville at its very best. The other hat I'm wearing is the Treasurer of the Friends of the Park. Through a generous donation from the Manassian family, a garden has been given to the city of Oroville. It has been finished, and we need to dedicate it. I have sent an invitation to all of you. I've written every envelope myself, and I'd like you to come on the 22nd at 9 in the morning. We're going to have a few members of the Manassian family. We're going to cut a ribbon, and we're going to show you this beautiful, beautiful garden that has been done in memory of Jean, Jack, and Malcolm Manassian. And they have, in the last 2 years, given $40,000 to the city for the improvement of St. Park. We'd love to have you come down and see the beauty that we have wrought out of what we have. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity. Good night.
Mr. Mayor, we have several speakers on this item. Our first speaker is Oliver Perry Ronaldson. I'm sorry if I butchered the last name. No.
It's my first time speaking to the City Council, so I have no idea what to say or who to address it to. But to, I guess, the City Council. My name is Oliver Perry. This is Ron Lanson, Vice President and Vice President Ron Lanston and President Oliver Perry of Veteran Adventures. We are wanted to introduce ourselves to the city council to introduce our program, Veteran Adventures. We are a veteran nonprofit recreation program. We focus on veterans with PTSD and other disabilities to try and get them out into society, become part of the community. We are hosting our first huge event. We've been doing this about 3 years, but we are hosting our first huge event out at the Aquatic Center on July 10th. We invite you all to come out and see how and what we do.
Briefly, we've been doing this about 3 years on our own. We're both combat veterans ourselves, and we've seen the struggles that the young men have. We've had as many as 15 people from the Menlo Park, younger soldiers right out of Afghanistan come, and we take them boat rides, golfing, things like that, kind of reconnect. And this weekend we're having almost 50 vets gathered, mostly local and stuff like that, and it's just a veteran appreciation day, and we're making awareness of the suicide rate of our young vets and just PTSD awareness. So thank
Okay.
you.
Our next speaker is Tariff Riesinger.
Good evening, council members. I'm new to Oroville. I only moved here officially last August. I come from Turlock, semi-small community. I work as a armed security officer here in Oroville. Some people probably see me around. And I was brought up here because of the transient homeless issue, and so I'm there to guard the bank. And it has been an arduous task. When I first got here, the property was pretty much overrun. We get our occasional people that come in, and just like right now before I got off work, I had a habitual individual who I run off before. She came on the property and asked her to leave. She just ignored me. I got behind her. I said, "Look, I've told you before to leave." She turned around. She spit right at my feet. And she's harassed the customers in the past. And not just her, several, dozens of others. In Turlock, I was active with our city council because also had a homeless issue there. So I'd like to know who it is to speak with, or a group to speak with, about really addressing some of the issues that I have seen in this city. So if anybody would be more than happy afterwards to direct me where to go, whom to speak with, I would really appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steve Terry.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about Water Tender 3. Since Water Tender 3 the city has seen fit to say that Water Tender 3 is not authorized to respond within the city limits of Oroville, it is shut down. My dog and the other show has at this point been removed, you might say. Anyway, I just want you to understand, the nearest water tender that you have for Oroville right now is Station 64. That's Kelly Ridge. That's a 15-minute Code 3 drive, if you're fortunate, if it's available. The next water tender available is Gridley. That'd be 74, and however long it takes to drive from Gridley. Or Butte College, Cherokee, Concow, Durham, or Chico. About 2 weeks ago, I was on the fire in the dog park when I was still considered in limits. And I will tell you, we needed a second water tender. It came all the way from Chico. So we have great coverage right now for our fire department. And in these times when we're looking at what's best for our city and helping our firefighters out and getting water to them, depriving them of 3,500 gallons of water is kind of a tough thing to do. And then if you were on the dog park fire, you would have found out that the ingress and egress was blocked most of the time. But it wasn't blocked by who you might think it was. It was blocked by CAL FIRE. Constantly, we had to get out and ask them to move so we'd get water through to our engines. And so just some information for you, because with Water Tender 3 being sidelined, I don't think it's really very good for the city. And it really isn't real good for not getting water to our firefighters.
Our next speaker is Bill Spear.
Council, thank you for opportunity to speak with you today, and I just come this evening to pray over y'all. So Father, in the name of Jesus, thank you for the leaders, our city council, and pray for supernatural wisdom, Lord, to guide and direct. Lord, we pray your protection upon their families, upon all who serve, Lord, the firefighters and the police and all the people that work here in our city. And we pray that you would help us to continue to work together and to do what's best for the city. I think of all the things that's going on over in Chico, and I just pray that that doesn't happen here. I pray for your peace that surpasses all understanding. We thank you for the security guard that moved here, and we pray that you would bless all the people that are looking out, and we pray for the homeless that are out there, that you would make a way for them to be restored, to be made whole, that you would help us to be diligent. Even to them, we pray for the Hope Center, that you would continue to use them mightily and to meet the needs of the people. And we thank you for the rescue mission and their many years of serving the least of these, and Haven of Hope on Wheels. Thank all the wonderful organizations that you have in our city, and just pray you'd be with them all. Give them fresh anointing, a fresh wind. The Veterans Recreation program, bless them and let them prosper. Let it serve lots of people. In Jesus.
Our next speaker is the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. It was great to see some of you all at the fly-in over the 4th of July weekend. Wonderful event. Great people in our city. Great event. So what I'm about to talk about now really disturbs me and brings a disappointment to my heart to learn that a citizen who wishes not to be named, but I will say this, take it with a grain of salt, because all it is word and allegation. The only thing I can independently verify is that one other person has confirmed some of the things that has been said to me in this email, and certain faces I'm not seeing around town anymore. But what's communicated to me is that a certain lieutenant in the Oroville Police Department, Zariet, if I'm saying his last name, but his first name's Gil, is supposedly under investigation for sexual harassment and other misconduct in the workplace. From what I've been told, he's accused of allegedly touching female dispatchers in inappropriate places and just generally harassing other female members of staff. Whether or not this is true, per se, it's very disturbing nonetheless. There's also mention regards to a different sergeant who's also been troublesome, which I've also heard about and spoken about on this mic previously. And it's just really disturbing to think that this is potentially going on and that there's no action being taken. That's why I'm being reached out to, because supposedly Sergeant Purdy was accused of letting someone go from a DUI, and she was put through the ringer. And this lieutenant is doing some serious misconduct, allegedly, and supposedly no action's going to be done, and it's going to run out in 8 days.
Our last public speaker.
Before the speaker, no, you can have a seat, sir. Before the next speaker, I'm going to address something publicly. I will not address allegations made about personnel issues from the dais. What I will say is this. This city takes allegations of impropriety very seriously, absolutely seriously. So to have a member of the public come up and say the city's not doing anything about anything could not be further from the truth. When allegations are made, they are investigated. I will not, and again, I'm speaking in a vacuum. I'm not confirming anything that was said here from the podium, other than to say, when allegations are made, they are investigated. And we go wherever the facts lead us in every one of those investigations. That's it.
The last public speaker on non-agenda items is Bobby O'Reilly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, council. Very wonderful to see your smiling, warm, friendly faces this evening. I would like to briefly echo Preacher 3, Mr. Steve Terry, in the sentiments on the water tender. I too was at the Riverbend fire. I too was at the fire behind the olive orchard. I too was, at the fire by Walmart. And these fire engines use water very quickly. They're not made with a whole lot of water. They're made to get there and start on the process until the backup gets there. But they're not made to drag out for a long period of time. Understanding that I am in the position I am on a volunteer status and basis, this comment that I've made tonight is of my own personal opinion. So my own personal opinion as a citizen of Oroville, I hope that both agencies can work together and come up with some cooperative plan to put public safety at the top, which usually does that, and get back to services. And I would like to also address the what would I call it?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that we lost him because he's no longer on Zoom. So, Mr. Mayor, that is the last speaker that I have on non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I respectfully request to pull item number 5.
Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling item number 5.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar exempt item number 5.
I second.
Mr. LeGrone.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Mr. LeGrone, you pulled item number 5.
Yes, sir. I need to recuse myself from this item and leave the room. I'm a trustee of that board.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I can go ahead and handle that item. It is a standard contract that's done for the last number of years to provide a school resource officer to the school district. I can get into the benefits of that if you'd like, or certainly I can answer any questions if you have any. But
Are there any questions from this dais? Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on item 5.
Looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 8959.
So moved.
Sorry, was that Goodson Thompson? Or Hatley, okay. Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Public hearing, we have to wait till 5:15, so we're going to jump over to regular business. Item number 5, Old Time Fiddlers mural on east wall of the Oroville Convention Center.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Dawn Nevers with Community Development. As the improvements of the Oroville Convention Center are continuing, we are coming to the point to where we need to paint the exterior of the building. With that, there is a mural of the Old Time Fiddlers that was painted on the exterior of the building in 2003. There is also a plaque that was dedicated in 2004. But like the exterior condition of the building, the condition of the mural too has been declining over the years. At this point, staff would like to recommend painting over the mural and then working with the Arts Commission in the future or at a later date to commission a new mural potentially for the facility on another wall or even the same wall. So would like to request council.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speaker cards for item 7.
Do we have any questions from this dais? Having none, I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to paint over the mural at the time the building is repainted and coordinate with the Arts Commission to repaint a new mural and dedication of Old Time Fiddlers plaque.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Moving on to item number 8, alternative plan for increased fire protection services.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight for your consideration is an alternative plan that's been provided by community members to the city for an alternative to contracting out services to CAL FIRE, but to continue the services through the Oroville Fire Department and enhancing the ability of the Oroville Fire Department. What the proposal suggests to the city is that we should add to our current coverage by adding a volunteer program. A volunteer program would be 18 volunteers that would be recruited from the community to augment services within the Oroville Fire Department and to help deliver those services in times of emergency, but also to help cover shifts that are left vacant or available because of vacation, empty shifts, employment issues that individuals may have, whatever the reason may be, but they will help cover those shifts. So we're suggesting to add a volunteer program. The second part of the program would be to pay for the services that are currently being rendered by CAL FIRE in the Thermalito area. That is a number that was provided that was extrapolated out and added to this. The third element of this would be to add new softwares to the Oroville Fire Department to enhance their ability for people to enter in their property address with specific issues that may be there, but also the software would be one that would allow people to, or allow our firefighters to more accurately enter in pre-plans and things like that, so they're more prepared when they do show up at the working structure fire or a rescue or something like that. With that, I'd like Jackie, just if you could, Jackie, show us a couple videos on this software. They're about a minute each, so it won't take horribly long.
The first new platform provides you actionable data on every structure for every call, so your team is always prepared for any incident. Community Connect is a crucial part of making this a reality. With Community Connect, your residents will securely share information about their household that will aid first responders and emergency personnel when responding to an incident at their home. So how does it work? Your residents first access a link promoted on your website, Facebook page, and other social media outlets, all directing them to your Community Connect landing page, educating them as to what Community Connect can provide in terms of value, features, and security. Next, they will create an account, validate their email address, and add their details and home address. Afterward, they will be able to easily add information about what matters most, including property information, residential contacts, information about residents with functional needs, and even pets. Once that data is added into the resident side, it's immediately made available to you and your team when responding to an incident, with alert tiles so you can easily access critical information about the property and its occupants. First Due makes rolling out Community Connect to your residents a breeze by providing a best practices guide to every customer, which includes a resident-facing landing page, press release templates, outreach strategies, and media engagement guide.
Hi, I'm Emily from the Oroville team. At First Due, we're completely reimagining pre-incident planning. By leveraging data from the assessor, GIS, the building department, internal systems like RMS and fire prevention, open data from Esri and Socrata, and even social media, First Due provides pre-plans on every single location in your response area, even residential. When you're responding to a residential structure fire, First Due gives you a dashboard with the information you need. You'll immediately know this is a single-family home that was built in 1940 and remodeled in 1980. You'll see it has balloon frame construction based on the year the home was built, that there is a fireplace, and that the building is brick construction. All critical information is included, down to the fact that this home has a residential passenger elevator. You'll also have quick and easy access to a property sketch and photos from the assessor. First Due gives you all of this on every structure in your response area with no work from your team, within weeks of coming on board. And it's not only on residential. For commercial structures, we have incredibly comprehensive information that helps us from a pre-planning perspective. For example, we know that this is a nursing home. We have a hazardous material notification coming from statewide Tier 2 data sources, caution notes coming directly from CAD, and premise warnings from RMS. We see the type of building construction and even know that there are solar panels at this location. This intelligence helps us accelerate our own internal pre-planning by providing us base information on every single structure, instantly adding to our pre-planning ISO points. First Due is completely reimagining pre-incident planning by providing you data on every structure in your response area, no matter how small or large your jurisdiction.
Mr. Mayor, that is, and Council, that is very robust software. Chief Tins and I have seen a presentation of that. It is a very good program. It's something that, regardless of what the Council decides, this is probably software we should still consider for our community because it is a very robust and very informative piece of software that all firefighters can use. The fourth part of the plan would be to outsource our current dispatch center for fire to the EEC provided by the county. Then that would be eliminating 2 fire positions or 2 dispatch positions and sending those out to the county or CAL FIRE dispatch center to dispatch fire services in the city of Oroville. With that, what that would do for our fire services, that would change our current level of service from 18 firefighters to 36 fire personnel, 18 being volunteer. It's believed that this program may enable our ISO rating to improve from a 3 to a 2. And it provides twice the level of service that is proposed by the CAL FIRE contract as stated in the paperwork that was provided by the group. With that, I will try to answer whatever questions that I can for you on this.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do have several speakers on this item. The first speaker is Linda Draper.
Timer. There we go. I'm hoping that this council will really carefully consider option 3, this hybrid thing. It might be the best compromise, you know, and in government, compromise is really the way to go, not this my way or the highway business. And I would like to mention, too, that we all voted for Measure U, with the understanding that that money was going to go to support our police and fire departments and fix the roads, okay? So I'm still hoping that you guys will do the right thing and use some of that surplus you've got for our police and fire. And with the climate changing, temperatures are going through the roof all across the country. I think it was 114 in Seattle a couple days ago, 112 in Portland. There is not going to be any respite. We've got 6-month-long summers, which is a 6-month-long fire season. And so we need a local fire department that can get here and get here fast. And I think that it would be really a help for the city if you guys vote to do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention, because I got cut off last time, was that there is an election coming up in just a little over a year. And people may not be down here, with pitchforks, but they have long memories. And some of us like to remind them. And so we are hoping that you will do the right thing and keep all this in mind. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steve Terry.
By the way, the other thing that the hybrid plan does seek to do is to reimburse Butte County Fire, CAL FIRE, about the estimate's around $540 some odd thousand for the extra runs that they're making on behalf of the city. So it does seek to do that, which would answer one of the other questions. A couple things I want to point out about this. One of the things that's been stated through this is we would go from being a fire department of 18 to have over 500 firefighters. And that sounds all well and good. But the problem here is just through the fireworks show at the airport the other day, it's kind of common knowledge that CAL FIRE was having trouble finding engines to help out at that fireworks show. Well, I thought that wasn't supposed to happen. They have unlimited resources. Well, we have fires burning. They're thinned out, as they should be, but they're thinned out. That means that, just like we've said going along, just because CAL FIRE comes on board doesn't mean we won't get thinned out and doesn't mean we won't get stuck. I do have a question for you. Has CAL FIRE selected a chief yet for Oroville? I know you can't answer, but rumor has it that it has. And the one thing I want to tell you is in the fire department, there's really nothing safe. Anyone's member of the fire department, we hear stuff. It usually turns out to be true, or a good portion of it. And I'll tell you, if it's true, then I have a few questions. Why has it been done without council input? That would be my first question. Why hasn't it been done in accordance with city charter? Because it's supposed to be the council that appoints the fire chief. And why has it been done before the community meetings and before this meeting tonight? Because right now, the way it kind of appears is this deal has kind of been a bunch of backroom shenanigans. And
our next speaker is Michael Brown.
Council, thank you. Appreciate your attention in looking at fire protection. I also voted for Measure U. I'm a proponent of consolidated fire protection because of the level of service it provides. This third alternative is contrary to what the town of Paradise, the city of Biggs, the city of Gridley, and Butte County have done with CAL FIRE for a total of about 150 fiscal years. It's a model that might work in Riverside County, where the county takes the lead and has leverage over the cities to force them into a CAL FIRE agreement if they want to be part of the co-op. In Butte County, it's up to you to negotiate for yourself with CAL FIRE. This third alternative is probably a boat with a hole in it. I can't imagine what's in it for CAL FIRE. With 600 calls, that's enough for a fire engine, a new fire engine, a new station somewhere else in the county. I think 600 calls is more than the Richvale engine, the Bangor engine, probably a couple others go to in a year. you might be putting your foot in a bear trap by trying to come up with a third alternative to contract with Butte County instead of CAL FIRE, and that's how this appears. I like the idea of volunteers. I've been a volunteer myself for the city of Gridley and for Butte County and for CDF. I was a student firefighter in a reserve program. But you're not going to get 18 that are going to meet the qualifications to ride along on your fire engine. It's just not going to happen. Were you in a consolidated program now and there were a fire here, within 10 minutes you'd have 17 professional firefighters. Coincidentally, that's what your consultant told you it takes to fight a fire in a home. I think you're barking up the wrong tree looking at this third alternative. If you want ISO to improve, task any chief you have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Our next speaker is Annie Terry.
Appreciate the opportunity to address the council tonight. Our family no longer has a dog in the show. My husband is no longer volunteering for the city as a firefighter, so we no longer have a dog in the show. So I want to bring that up. The other thing so we're doing this because we think it's a wrong idea to go with CAL FIRE. That's the reason he spoke up, and that's the reason I'm speaking up. I myself feel that it's a bad idea. As my understanding is, with this hybrid plan, they wouldn't be volunteers, they would be reserve firefighters. So it's not untrained personnel who may or may not be able to cut the mustard, as it were, but they're actually trained firefighters who are doing this for a lower pay, but in order to make sure that the city of Oroville's needs are met and to earn a little bit of extra money at a lower rate of pay. That's my understanding, so it's not the same as a volunteer. I don't like the idea, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but I don't like the idea of feeling like we're being threatened. Threats to me, it's one of those things my mama always said, and I won't use the words that my mother used, but my mother always said that when someone is being passive-aggressive, it's chicken, something. I don't like the idea of feeling threatened, that somehow we're not going to be assisted or aided by any other agencies because the city would dare to make a change and to make their own decisions regarding this. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Mr. Mayor, our last speaker is Bobby O'Reilly.
Hello, thank you once again. Sorry that I cut out the last time. I do see that we're still down to 2 minutes. I'd ask that that be raised so that we, the community, can give our input without having to rush. I do find it awesome and very odd at the same time that I'm going to 100% have to agree with Linda Draper on the situation, and that being that we need to explore options. Okay, with that said, my understanding after the last council meeting is that the city would be contracting with Butte County Fire, who is contracted with CAL FIRE, and that's the way that I understand it and what was said at the last meeting. So the first thing first is one of the major issues of this whole situation is all of the information is not being put out there as it should. Therefore, the frustration and the confusion as to what's really going on. Some of us didn't know that this was a contract or looking at a contract with Butte County Fire because the whole thing that's been said from the start of this whole process has been with CAL FIRE. It's been said with CAL FIRE. So I'd just like to say, if we can, let's get the correct information out there. As Annie said, it's not a bunch of volunteers that don't know their head from their rear side running around. It's reserve personnel who are experienced and also individuals who have a want to get into it and they want to get trained too. So with that said, I applaud the council for looking into this option. I ask that the city finally give the fire department a chance, give it an opportunity, and actually invest in our local department. I hope that I get a thank you as well. Bye-bye.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last public speaker on this item.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from this dais? Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, so I'm going to try to narrow it down to my most important questions. On the proposal, the estimated contracted price, again, estimated, is $537,000. Is that a estimation based on the makers of this proposal, or is that an adequate estimation from CAL FIRE or Butte County Fire?
This 537,000 was used, or came up with using the formula provided by the submitters of this proposal.
And do we have a concept or idea of what might be appropriate from Butte County Fire or CAL FIRE on what that number would be?
The number that I have been provided is an unofficial number, but the number that I've been provided is it's closer to $1.2 million.
Oh, okay. What about, okay, so one of the general plans is to annex the Thermalito area. Do we know what effect that might have?
If we were to annex the Thermalito area, we'd become financially responsible for providing fire service there, depending on which direction the council decided to go. If the council decided to do the CAL FIRE contract, we would have to pay additional dollars for providing fire service to that area because we'd be collecting the property tax for the area. If we went with the hybrid plan, we would have to look at how are we going to provide service in that area and potentially look at the build out of our fire department into the west side of town.
Okay. My last question is, I would be really interested in the reserve program from Redbluff. I actually have a friend who is a part of that reserve program in Redbluff and really enjoys it. And so I guess my questions are, how do they administer that? And do we know what kind of numbers and what kind of participation they have in that program, and what the annual budget is for administering that program?
I do not have the numbers for what they expend each year to administer that program. I think Chief Tins may be able to answer some questions operationally about that because I believe he did visit Redbluff and get some information on that program.
Okay, thank you. As far as the other numbers, I would like a more official, if we moved forward with this, for me to feel comfortable with that. Some things I would like to see is the more official number with Butte County Fire and what that contract piece would be for those extra calls.
Well, this is a piece of information too that was shared with me from CAL FIRE representatives. They're not interested in this alternative. They are not interested in doing dispatch. They are not interested in this type of a plan. They either want to provide the service or they want to stay out of it.
Well, that answers that question.
Okay, thank you. But now on to Redbluff.
Yeah, so good evening, Mayor, Council. A couple months ago, I got to visit the Redbluff Fire Department and their chief, discuss it, review their program. I have it, I don't have it with me tonight, but operationally, they make minimum wage, which is roughly around $16 an hour, and they're required to work a minimum set hours, which we could make that up however we would like, as long as they wouldn't exceed 1,000 hours per year, obviously. And they're recruited through the local fire academies. So the fire department would send representatives out to speak at their academies and try to recruit. And typically it's people that are looking for jobs, looking for experience, have the credentials to come into an entry-level position. We would have to provide some small additional training, but they come out with quite a bit of the minimum qualifications for an entry-level firefighter and some, obviously, personal protective equipment.
Thank you. I guess my last comment is just I really appreciate the community members and Councilmember Pittman for coming up with this third concept. I think it's always important to not be faced with only two options, but to really explore all of our options. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. Staff, appreciate your presentation. I really enjoyed the additional new software that would help the department provide better services community in terms of level of service and direct service to the individual homeowner. I think it's the outstanding concept. One of the things that we have to respond to in this community is the number of homeowners that are losing their fire insurance. And for us to sit here and do nothing is absolutely irresponsible. At least the alternative plan takes a step in the right direction to improve our fire service the best we can, in the hopes that the insurance companies will respect that and see that we're talking about having more personnel in the fire engine and responding. So I think that's the responsible part about this plan. And to change the ISO rating, if the insurance company will take that, that's great. That's the only step that we can do. I mean, we can't write policies for our homeowners. We don't have that ability, but we do have the ability and the financial responsibility to fund the best and the cheapest fire protection we can for our community. So with that, I know there's a number of numbers in here that are guesstimates. I would like to give direction to staff to firm down the guesstimates and specifically the reimbursements to Butte County Fire. What that would be for those calls that happen inside the city for what we call Station 63. I'd also like to see the dispatch costs as we had contracted dispatch services before in the past. And also a narrowing down of the reserve volunteer fire program. I also attended that meeting with the chief in Redbluff, and not only that, I've had many conversations with the council members in Redbluff, and they have very positive comments about that reserve firefighter program to their constituents, their community. They have not the same level of communication from the homeowners about losing fire insurance. So to me, it's not a new idea program. It's using, and if I will, copying a program that's very successful in another community. I don't see why we can't go down the same path. I would like the staff given the direction to firm up the numbers so that the public has a fair idea of what we're talking about. I'll admit I worked on a number of the numbers, and those are just sheer guesstimates. We don't even know what the imbalance is between the county's station at Nelson Avenue and the calls in the city. The number 600 is the best guess that was given to make this number, to do the mathematics of it. It might be less, it might be more, I don't know. But I think it's fair to ask our staff to make communications with Butte County Fire, CAL FIRE, and find out what those numbers are so that we can reimburse appropriately. The reimbursement would be to the County of Butte. They have a contract with CAL FIRE for services. And I would hope the supervisors would be accepting of the dollar amount. I can't imagine them not being. As far as if they're not interested in dispatch costs or doing dispatch for us, I'm not sure that's their call. They're state employees. They work for the state of California. We had dispatch services before. I'd be curious about how their decision-making tree is on that. So if that's their case, I'd like to see that in letter form so that we know what we're talking about. Because I have a few state representatives I'll be talking to about that. That's all I have, is just the request that staff be given the time, adequate time, to get some real solid numbers so that you, the public, know what we're really talking about. As I will admit, these are guesstimates. These are not, they may not be true numbers, up or down, either way. And you, the public, need to know what the numbers really are. That's my request.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of observations and then a question potentially for Chief Tens. Several weeks ago, probably now a month or two ago, we had a Measure U workshop, and at that workshop, you presented about all of the training that is just a necessity in modern emergency services, firefighting. You were, I think, making a very eloquent, actually, case for the need for deeper levels of service, additional training, even for our own department, to really adequately provide quality, protection for our community. And so, and then I did some research on the volunteer/reserve. By the way, in this presentation, the term reserve and volunteer is used interchangeably. And then there was a comment about that. And so it looks like it's kind of a hybrid of that concept as well. But so looking at that and then looking into some of the challenges with that type of a program in a city setting, I mean, a rural setting where it's more of a wildland fire and you have volunteer or reserves, you know, so the dynamics are different. Again, I by no stretch present myself as knowing much about how to deal with, you know, modern fire suppression. That's not my world at all. But just reading that and understanding the complexities of that, the necessity of adequate and appropriate training, I mean, I have some concerns about, as a city, laying a lot of our reliance on that type of a program for a city area, rural outlying areas, and or as I understand it, volunteers or reservists are great for help, training, joining schools, those kinds of things helps alleviate some of the stress off of the local department. So I'm just kind of perhaps curious about your kind of feeling about that, that dynamic. And then an additional concern, looking at this hybrid proposal, and we saw an amazing presentation of the software, the two different software programs, and I think it's awesome. I mean, I think we certainly need to consider that. However, Oroville currently has service provided by 3 different fire agencies. We have El Madeo, which is not fully functioning at this time, of course, OFD, and then CAL FIRE, who it provides all calls of service north of the Feather River. So in that, I'm not quite sure how we would, if it was OFD, for an example, and we, City Council, we were to elect to purchase this program for our fire department, it would seem that potentially El Madeo would be left out of that loop if they were to continue or to reconstitute themselves. So we would have South Oroville in the city limits, potentially without that program. And then I don't know if would CAL FIRE use that program within their jurisdiction. And so to me, it's created, for me, far more questions than answers. I get if we do it here, but it would seem to me potentially, that we would have a disparity of levels of service throughout our city. If you're north of the river, you don't get the advantage of that amazing program, if that's something CAL FIRE doesn't take advantage of, and potentially El Madeo. So I see we're already creating haves and have-nots, potentially. So I think that would absolutely have to be addressed, because that would be a no-go for me. I could never go for, we provide one level of service for one part of the city, but if you live over here, you don't get that. That's a problem, potentially. And then on the ISO dynamic, I've done some calling.
Quiet in the council and the chambers, please.
And again, this is more perhaps a question that you can answer or maybe help with some understanding with the ISO. I've talked to insurance agents. I've talked to insurance agents who've personally lost their insurance for their homeowners because of the dynamics that all of us are facing. I think climate change was brought into this discussion, you know, and historically, California, all the way back to the 1800s, we've gone through tremendous droughts. I mean, drought is, you know, no stranger to our state. And man-made climate, is that an impact? I don't know. Probably. We're told that it is. But we do know this, that we have challenges. And obviously things have changed in our state. Obviously fire is a huge deal. When it comes to the ISO rating, when it comes to how that works, whether it's by zip code or do they Google map and look down, oh, you got a lot of trees around your house, we don't think we're going to cover you. However they're doing that, as I look into it, no one seems to have a real concrete answer. No one can say, this is how we determine your ISO rating. You know, I asked the question, if we went with a deeper level of service with CAL FIRE, would that enhance our ISO rating? I don't know. If we had a great investment with OFD and we had a more robust management program with tree trimming and real heavy-handed, you know, programs within the city, you know, imposing upon our citizens to ensure that all the vegetation is removed. I mean, what would that take to get that rating from a 3 to a 2 or from a 2 to a 1? And I cannot get a straight answer from anybody. It'd be wonderful to know how all that's worked out. How is that determined to make a qualified, intelligent decision about something so, fundamental to the protection of our community? Man, we have to have good information, and it just seems to be lacking. Even in my attempt to call around, asking questions, I mean, maybe you have some insight to some of these things. But so the program, would there be disparity potentially there? ISO rating, and then depth of service. I'm kind of throwing a whole lot at you, but I think these are really important for us to make a qualified decision with all that's before us. This is in my opinion, very complex in some ways. So thank you.
So I'm gonna try to remember it all. So stop me. So I think the first question was based around training provided to the reserve.
Yeah,
position.
measure you when you're making that presentation.
Yeah, so they would go through the same training that's already implemented, already in place, that we put probationary employees through already. They go through an admin introduction where they'd be introduced to our systems and everything that we produce and provide right now for an entry-level firefighter straight out of academy. It'd really be no difference. We have those programs in place. We have state qualified training officers. We have a training chief, and captains assist with that too. So they would follow they have to know our equipment just as much as any other firefighter on there. I mean, they're going to be working, or they would be working on a piece of equipment as a firefighter, and supplementing our low staffing levels. So as far as providing training, they would receive the same training that our probationary firefighters do. Essentially, it may be more of a hybrid. We'd have to meet, put that together. We just haven't looked into it, but I think that would be a good starting point. The same instructors that train our new guys would train those guys as well. It'd probably be extended a lot longer because they're not going to work as many hours as we do.
I just had one question, and if I can add one more element to that. So a lot of this EMS type of service, which most of your calls are not fire, they're traffic accidents, and medical emergencies, and so when seconds count literally for someone's life, and we rely more heavily on a volunteer or this type of program. How does that work when it comes to those seconds counting? If Joe's at work, or everyone's, it's just different when guys or gals are in a firehouse and they're ready. I mean, they're jumping on that call. How does that work exactly?
They work a shift just like a normal firefighter, 24 hours. Obviously, not to the full extent, as I said, but they're working under direct supervision, just like a full-time career firefighter would be. Under the supervision of a captain, and above them obviously would be the duty chief. So they're not going to be operating by themselves at all. They'll work under direct supervision.
So that's more of a reserve. You're talking about a reservist, and where they have a low rate of pay and that
yeah,
type of
they
thing.
wouldn't receive. I mean, it would depend on how we wanted to move forward with it. But I mean, we would obviously probably suggest no benefits. It's a simple paycheck. They're not going to work enough hours to receive. That's where some savings would be for personnel. So they're really only receiving a paycheck.
Okay.
For hours worked, and then everybody would benefit from increasing our staffing levels. Whether it would be in Kelly Ridge, Palermo, Thermalito, City of Oroville, El Mementos District. We assist them all the time. They assist us all the time. So if there was a structure fire in Kelly Ridge and they wanted one of our engines, mutual aid or auto aid, to go up and assist them, if there was 4 people on that rig and one of them or 2 of them were reserve, they would go up and assist. So there'd be a better level of service just by adding some additional people. The people on the other side of the river would, in the city limits, obviously would benefit from that as well. On that side of the river, 63 provides an auto aid. There's an auto aid agreement, so they send a first due resource. That resource is dispatched. There's a call placed from our dispatch center to CAL FIRE's ECC requesting an engine auto aid, only because they're closer. They're a closer resource, and it's an agreement we have, and it's the right thing to do is to send the closest resource. We don't send ours because they're closer. Now, if there's anything that's a multi-engine response, they're going to receive city services in addition with an auto aid engine, just like if it was on Montgomery Street downtown. We would send 3 engines, a duty chief, and then a CAL FIRE engine would come auto aid and assist us. It's the same thing in the county. So they receive, on the north side of the river, that side of the river, they receive engines for medical aids, because they're just the closest resource. That's why we send them. I'm trying to think from there.
Well, so the software program.
Oh, the software program, yeah. So there's a lot to explain with that. It's beneficial not only to the fire department but for the community. It involves the community. That's what we want to do. It allows people to get online, get on our website or Facebook page or whatever, click a link, and they can enter, any kind of information they want to enter. And if we get dispatched to a call at that location where that information has been entered, when we show up, we have that information that they wanted us to have. If there is a non-ambulatory patient or an aggressive dog, or maybe they reload their weapons and they have a lot of ammunition in their house, they can put that kind of information. It gives us a heads up. And also the outside pictures of the house, we can be visually looking at a house and know the format of it, the layout of it, before we even get there. Essentially, this system would replace a lot of what we already have in play, and it consolidates everything into one. So, they have reporting systems that we utilize. They have staffing programs that we utilize, and we could mold all that together into one system.
And how would that play with El Medeo and then our CAL FIRE? How would that work? I mean, I understand, and I think it's great.
So
it's an amazing. I mean, I would feel better about knowing that when you guys are responding to an emergency in my house, that you have that additional information. I mean, that's great. But how would that then interact with those other agencies?
We would just provide them a login access.
So then they would be able to access that as well.
There may be a cost associated with it, because right now, currently, Butte County CAL FIRE surrounding stations have access into our reporting system. If they run a city call, there's a report generated in the city reporting system. We would allow the same thing for that. The alerting systems we have now, so if dispatch sends us to a call, it alerts our phones, it alerts our tablets in the engines, it gives us mapping systems, we can track resources and where they're at. This is all the same thing. We could allow them to have access to that.
And then can you give us any light on the ISO rating?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
Who's pulling those strings?
ISO is pulling them, the insurance company.
I mean, I've personally had my insurance canceled, and I live in the city limits in a regular residential area.
This wouldn't have anything to do with how the insurance companies themselves are tiering systems to where insurance rates are going up or they're getting dropped at all. This along with the reserve/firefighter or reserve/volunteer program would obviously give us additional points for an increased level of service, more firefighters. So, I mean, the type of tools that we carry on our ladder trucks, the type of gear, how many ladders we have, how much hose we carry, what equipment staffed, water systems. There's a lot of stuff. I would be happy to share the reports that we do when we do that. I think ISO rating of 3 for our size department is actually really well. But I do believe that, yeah, it would help. I couldn't stand here and tell you it's going to be a 2 for sure without, actually doing the report and sending it off, and they'll grade us.
Because when I asked one agent, what would it take? What can we do as a city to improve that ISO rating? And he said it's Sacramento. I mean, essentially, that's what.
It's in
I'm
San
just
Francisco.
telling what he was saying.
It's in San Francisco, and I've dealt with them, and I would be happy to share a report with council or anybody, and they can go through and see how, our plates and how we keep our plates in the station and how we document our training and our reports and, stuff like that.
Well, thank you.
It's
You've helped.
very in-depth. So, but I do have a meeting with Mercury Insurance July 8th regarding this topic. And hopefully we can shed some light, maybe help out. I've been working on this. What can we do? What services can we provide as a department to help our community out and stop losing their homeowners insurance or raising it? But it should be informational. We're going to get together and talk. And
I know mine's more than doubled personally. Got canceled, had to shop, and then doubled. And we're all in that boat. I mean, every one of us feels the pinch. So whatever we can do, by all means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. That was a long question, but a lot of good information. And I'd also add that the ISO rating is a very large percent of it is fire department and manning of the fire department, because if you look at a class 1, that means you got 6 firefighters on every fire engine that goes everywhere in your community. And that obviously is probably a very few amount of departments in the nation. But it also is the water system. what kind of water system do you have, the reliability of that water system, and can they deliver the required fire flow? So it's a complex issue. We happen to have a very good water system in this community, and I believe it's either 40 or 50% of the points are credited toward just the water system alone. So we need to work with our water delivery companies here to make sure they're up to speed on that topic, which, we can obviously do. But the ISO is a complex, but at the same time, it's our best way to answer that question for our community. And then, as the chief mentioned, working with the insurance companies to find out what is their tip over point so we can make it safe for our community. Because the alternative to this is homes being canceled, fire insurance, and not being able to have your community have a decent residential area, which is just not acceptable. It's just bizarre. But I personally had lost the fire insurance on my own home, and I live in the city, and it was not easy to get anything. It's been very expensive, and I agree with Councilman Smith. This council's got to look at that, and that's one of the topics. And I appreciate the presentation on the software. I think that's the level of service this community deserves. Frankly, we should be providing that level of service. And I believe it could also be shared with the police department. Is that accurate?
I would have to confirm with Nicholas, but I believe so. Our game plan with beginning to research this is sharing that important, vital information, not only with fire, but with law enforcement and dispatch. They're put in situations also, and obviously I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I would imagine being able to see the layout of a commercial building or a residential where somebody could be barricaded just as if there was a fire in a house somewhere, and to have that information before we arrive at scene, or stand outside pre-plan and come up with a good plan.
And in the video, it showed that their data mining was very wide, and in terms of county records, city records, building permits, all kinds of different records. At this date and time, do we have any data mining that is done to that level in terms of finding out information about our residents and our community? None whatsoever.
Not even close.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the dais? I've got a couple questions. Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the looking into this from Councilman Pittman and our citizens. Now you can be seated. I don't have any questions for you. Thank you, sir. But for me, just to put the brunt of the need in our community for public safety and for firefighters on the shoulders of volunteer or reserve firefighters, and to at some degree believe that it would be equal to the service that we could potentially get through CAL FIRE, based on, at this point, what just appears to be more of a hope and I guess to keep what we have. I just don't think it's, for me, a wise decision to put the weight of what we need on reserve firefighters, and then on top of that to add the training. And then I've been talking to businesses around town, and from what I hear across the board from everybody is that it is really hard to get employees for more than minimum wage. So this is on the basis of the hope, I guess, or the plan of getting 18 firefighters or potentially new volunteer, trainee, reserves, or whatever you might call them, to come in and work for minimum wage. I just don't see that necessarily happening, especially in a day when I know great jobs who are looking to hire and have been looking to hire. In fact, the city of Oroville have been looking to hire for positions well over minimum wage, and we are having a hard time finding employees. So anyway, that's my comments.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate your comments too, and I certainly share the concern about getting staff or employees. You got to remember, these reserve volunteer firefighters are not full-time employees. These are part-time folks that have a strong interest in the fire service and want to participate and offer their services to the city, but they would get at least a reasonable amount of compensation for their time invested. They're only asked to do roughly 48 hours of time a month on a calendar that's open to them. So it's not a restricted time factor for them. So they can find the time they can, whether it's evening shift, day shift, whatever the case may be. As far as where to find them, I think that we could even have the 22 that work for Redbluff would love to come here. There's no reason not to hire the 22 from Redbluff, because most of the folks that work for Redbluff don't even live there. They just want the experience in a fire department to come and have that knowledge and skills and abilities that they can get from actual work experience. So yeah, it's reasonable to say how many you would get, but we'll never know until we try. That's my point. I think we'll never know until we try. So my motion would be to direct staff to get some firm numbers on the suggestions in this proposal and actually know what we're talking about, because like I mentioned before, these are only projections. These are not solid numbers. We need to have a conversation with anyone and everyone concerned so we can get solid numbers for the community to understand this.
I'd like to amend that motion. So I'm going to comment. Your motion's noted, sir, and I'm amending it. Mr. Legrand, I have some questions for you. Aren't all of these things that were presented to us included in the CAL FIRE contract?
Dispatch, a reserve/volunteer, be more of a volunteer program from CAL FIRE, are both included in the alternate or the CAL FIRE, Butte County CAL FIRE contract. It's a service that they provide that would be included underneath that contract.
And in hearing this proposal, I understand a lot of this is reliant on their involvement. I believe you said a while ago you've spoken to CAL FIRE?
I have spoken with a representative of CAL FIRE who essentially they are either going to be all in or all out.
So they're not interested in this?
Correct.
Okay. And then as far as the ISO, I've spoken with 2 insurance brokers that said no way, shape, or form would any of this affect the ISO. So I'm not an insurance expert. I asked experts, so it's not my opinion. I'm just merely stating what they said. But my question would be, you said there was 4 options on this item?
There are 4 different elements to this item. One would be paying for services out of Station 63. The second would be additional software. The third would be a reserve/volunteer program, and the fourth would be the dispatch center being transferred to the EEC.
Okay, well, my amended proposal is that since the people that we would need to be involved with this aren't on board with it, and me having a business where I tried to hire people at $64 an hour and they would not come to work. I had to hire people from out of state. So I just don't see this being successful. So I'm going to amend the motion that we direct staff to not pursue the alternative plan for increased fire protection.
So technically, Mr. Mayor, if I could just sort of clarify this, sort of the de facto parliamentarian, we've got a motion from Councilmember Pittman. You're actually making an alternative motion to that, not necessarily amending it. You're making an alternative motion. And any other council member can second either one for further discussion or for a vote, but you're not technically amending his motion. You're putting forward an alternative.
So I'm making a second motion, and from what I understand, the second motion will be voted on first.
If they both receive a second, then yes.
Okay.
May I make my motion clear? Just to repeat it. My simple motion is to direct staff to narrow down the figures in the alternative idea so that we have accurate numbers in all 4 of the items requested.
I second.
I'll second Mayor's.
Looking for a vote on which?
Pursuant to, as the council has adopted Rosenberg's Rules of Order, Rosenberg's Rules of Order outlines that the second motion you can have up to 3 at one time. The second motion, or the last motion, gets voted on first, and then you move to the prior motions. So the first motion that would be voted on, Mayor, would be yours, since that was the most recent one to come in with a second. And depending on the outcome of that one, then a vote on Councilmember Pittman's motion would be taken.
Councilmember Riggs, you wish to speak?
Thank you. My question is there a timeline that we're under right now with the potential CAL FIRE contract that needs to be considered if we moved forward with the alternative idea? So if we moved forward with gaining more information, does that impose on the current progress moving forward with CAL FIRE?
If the council wanted to see a contract go into place by next July, those decisions need to be made by August or September of this year.
Would it be reasonable for this council to have the figures ironed out from the alternative plan before that time?
It's not a matter of reasonableness. It's a matter if that's what the council wants. We will deliver what you were told to deliver.
I have a question.
That's a nice answer.
Councilmember?
Yeah.
I have a question based on the information that you've been given. Is it reasonable to assume that you're going to be able to come up with hard numbers in this time frame?
Based upon the information that I have previously been provided, I'm not sure I'll be able to come up with numbers, but I will be able to come up with an answer one way or the other in written format.
Okay, if there are no more comments, I'm calling for a vote on my motion.
Motion fails with 5 noes and 2 yeses. The second motion.
And now we need to take a vote on Councilmember Pittman's motion.
Which, can we clarify that one more time?
Just to have staff validate the numbers and check the numbers in the guesstimates so we have real and true numbers from all concerned on all steps of that alternative.
So I have a question. And my question is, I want to clarify and be very specific on those 4. Is one of those items inclusive of the reimbursement
Yes,
to Butte County?
What I've written down is it's the cost of Station 63 for reimbursement. I also have dispatch cost and the reserve program cost, and a letter from the agency stating if they decline to provide service.
And the volunteer firefighter program incorporates how many specific
As presented
number?
is presented in this plan, it shows 18.
All right.
I have one more thing now. You said that you would deliver what we requested, so then I would also like to see what the projection would be if Thermalito was annexed into the city. What percent they might be covering as well.
I understand what you're asking, but I really am hesitant to mix issues. I can bring that as what I'll do is I'll bring it as an asterisk at the bottom so you can see what that would look like in the future. I will try to get those numbers from them and figure something out for you.
Thank you. And just since it's a part of our general plan, I think it's
Yes, ma'am.
prudent that we follow that.
And before we go to vote, if I can also just say one thing. I'm sorry, today?
No, that's it.
Okay. Is just, there's a lot of things this council agrees on and just goes through smoothly, and it just, the stuff that we disagree on, it just gets delayed and delayed. So I'm just for moving forward with whatever, staying with OFD or going with CAL FIRE, but I think it's important for this council to, we waited another couple weeks to have this plan here. And now if we move forward with this, then we're waiting for another couple weeks for a hope. And for a hope of figures to come forward that would give us a better idea, still on the basis that we would be assuming that we could get 18 new volunteers.
Are we? Is there things
That's
that
it.
are not moving forward with the CAL FIRE agreement because of this delay?
Well, until we get direction from the council, the next step in this process would be with the council is to adopt a resolution of application to LAFCO for the agreement. So until we have resolution to this, we are continuing to work on this and come to that resolution. The one process that will be completed tomorrow was we will conduct some public meetings at 9 to 11 at the Oroville Civic Center, and again tomorrow evening at 6 to 8 to try to gather public input regarding the alternative proposal, the hybrid, the CAL FIRE proposal, and also the growth plan. So once we complete that, the next thing we're waiting on is for the council to give staff direction as to how you want to go.
Okay.
So I have one more thing to say.
Councilmember Goodson.
And I believe that first and foremost, the people elected us to ensure that our city is safe and that the citizens and visitors and guests are protected. And so we are at a crossroads here. But the people also elected us to make a very well-informed and vetted decision, and this is what we're doing, and we need the community input before we put a John Hancock on anything.
When are those community meetings again?
They're going to be tomorrow at the Oroville Civic Center at 9 to 11 in the morning, and again at 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening.
Thank you. I did know that. I was doing that for you guys. Thanks.
There's a vote.
The motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 noes.
Moving on to reports, discussions, and correspondence. Council announcements and reports, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, if we could we go back to the public hearings? Now we have a public hearing.
Yeah. All right, at this time, we will open the public hearing. Item number 6, appeal of the April 22nd, 2021 decision of the Planning Commission to reject a conditional use permit for an off-premise outdoor advertising structure at 2775 Feather River Boulevard.
Mr. Mayor, as a councilperson, Smith is recusing himself from this item because of his association with the chamber, who has a contract with Stott Outdoor Advertising.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Connor Musler, Assistant Planner. This item is an appeal of the Planning Commission's April 22nd rejection of use permit UP 21-03 for the construction of a new off-premise outdoor advertising structure at 2775 Feather River Boulevard. The applicant, Greg Redeker with Stott Outdoor Advertising, is seeking approval to construct a new 35-foot tall 12 by 24 advertising structure. All off-premise signs, including billboards, require a use permit. At the April 22nd meeting, a motion was made and seconded to approve the item as agendized, which failed with a vote of 4 noes, 2 yeses, and 1 absent. The Commission thus rejected a motion to approve the use permit, but did not actually deny the permit or make any associated findings. In arriving to their decision, the Planning Commission was concerned about the poor maintenance of existing landscaping on the property and aesthetics of off-premise outdoor advertising structures within the city. Staff notes that the proposed sign complies with Chapter 17.20 of the city's existing sign code, as well as the new sign code, which this body approved on June 15th. The sign would be located on the property so as to assure that it would not intrude or project beyond the public right-of-way. It would not be located within 500 feet of any other existing off-premise outdoor advertising structures. The maximum height allowed for off-premise outdoor advertising structures is 40 feet in this area. and the maximum allowed sign area is 300 square feet. The sign as proposed meets these requirements. Should the appeal be approved, the City Council must make the 7 findings as required by OMC 17.48.010. Those findings are further detailed in your staff report. Staff recommends approval on this item. Commissioner Natalie Sheard is here to represent the Planning Commission, and Appellant Greg Redeker is here to represent Stott Outdoor Advertising. Any questions?
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, the only speaker cards I have are from the applicant and from the Planning Commission.
Okay. Do they wish to speak?
Yes. I don't know if Planning Commission first.
No, it's actually
the applicant?
The first is the applicant,
Okay.
well, is the appellant.
Okay.
Up to 10 minutes, and then the Planning Commission can have up to 10 minutes, and then it goes back to the council.
Thank you and good evening, and members of the City Council. My name is Greg Redeker, and I am representing Stott Outdoor Advertising, the applicant and the appellant for this project. I wanted to thank you for considering this project tonight. I also wanted to thank planning staff for the recommendation of approval. We have read the report, we have understood and agreed to all of the conditions, and I'm just really here to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you, Mayor. I watched the Planning Commission meeting where you presented this item, and one of the concerns brought up was unattended or uncared for billboards. And so my question was, do you know about how many of your billboards aren't currently under contract, or about how many are vacant at any given time?
I do not have the information with me. What I can say, though, is that all of Stott Outdoor Advertising signs are very well maintained. If we don't currently have a paying advertiser, we do have something that will say like your ad here or advertise here. We don't have any signs that are just uncovered and have the sort of detritus of old previous signs. Those are some of our competitors, particularly Out Front has a number of signs in the city limits, and their maintenance leaves a lot to be desired.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I'm looking at the report. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this an electronic or a paper sign?
This is a paper sign, a traditional static fixed sign. It will have, a light, so that you can read it at night, but
Yeah.
It is not an electronic sign.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Natalie from the Planning Commission.
Billboards are extremely effective advertising. They are large and brilliantly designed to capture your attention as they are forced into your view. This use permit is for a 288 square foot off-premise sign, which is 35 feet tall. It would be the only billboard on this section of South Feather River Boulevard between the historic Oroville and Chinese cemeteries, and the largest billboard on the entire South Feather River Boulevard. Besides the increased property income to the owner who would be placing the sign on their property, studies have shown that property values are decreased near billboards for the other neighboring businesses. Billboards also divert your attention away from the on-premise signage that is so important for our businesses along that corridor. A new billboard on South Feather River does not fulfill the community design goals in the 2030 general plan, which are, and I quote, to maintain and enhance the quality of Oroville's landscape, streetscape, and gateways, to encourage landscape features along our corridors, making them interesting, appealing, and inviting, to ensure that screening features located along Feather River Boulevard are appropriately designed and make a positive visual contribution to the corridor, to encourage the development and installation of unique gateway features and landmarks for our corridors, in order to make them contribute to our sense of place. Billboards look the same all across America. Please consider, does adding another large billboard along this corridor accomplish these important goals? Would this billboard benefit the citizens and local businesses who reside on South Feather River Boulevard? Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Planning Commission? Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, again, I want to thank the Planning Commission for doing some excellent work. I mean, it's not an easy job, so thank you to start with. I see there's a number of conditions that were brought up. Are these conditions the Planning Commission would like to see toward this permit?
I remember they were discussed, but then I think in the end, I do not remember that they were a requirement for having it. He would probably know that.
Thank you very much.
More than I would.
The conditions that are within the resolution are pretty much identical to what was before the Planning Commission for their consideration. The only difference is the pole cover. It was discussed at the Development Review Committee at Planning Commission whether a pole cover, which is the decorative sleeve around the support base, would be required. Since the Planning Commission did not deny that resolution, that condition, it was determined based on the surrounding area. It's an industrial, commercial, that it was not a necessary thing to add unless City Council saw that it should be added back in, and that is a draft condition that is also added.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Connor? Looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 8968.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, before you ask for motions, I do want to just advise the council of two things. One, I think it's appropriate to close the public hearing at this point and limit discussion among staff and council members. I think questions and comments are already done. The other thing I want to mention to you is this is a de novo hearing. You do not have to follow the Planning Commission's guidelines. They may have suggested some things, not some other things. This is a new hearing. You have the ability to, to adopt whatever restrictions you'd like to impose in this instance. You can, and again, you've got several options here, but if there are any questions about what you've got the ability to do, I just wanted you to understand this is a brand new hearing. You're not limited by what was determined by the Planning Commission, although certainly you can take that as their desire and their advice as to what they'd like to see.
Right.
Well, I make a motion that we stand with the Planning Commission and on their decision to reject this use permit. I think that our city has a lot of billboards, and my vision for the city is not to look like a highway, but a community. And I think that along with what the Planning Commission said, the vision for Oroville, I don't see more billboards in our community as meeting that vision.
I second that.
The motion fails with 4 noes and 2 yeses.
And with that, we will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, you may want to seek an alternative motion. I mean, at this point, we're kind of at the same place where we started.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8968.
I second.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 absent.
Okay. Reports, discussions, correspondence. Does anyone from this council have anything to report?
Yeah.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, if you all got a chance to observed the fireworks activities at the Oroville Airport. I want to express thank you to all the many agencies that helped make that thing happen. Of course, I also serve on the Rotary, but that was just one of the facilitators. But we had Oroville Fire, Oroville Police Department, Butte County Sheriff's Office, Cal Fire, Butte County Fire. I don't want to forget anybody, but I believe State Parks, Fish and Game, California Highway Patrol. Many agencies are helpful and need to have recognition and credit for making sure we had a safe and secure family event. And it's at this point, my understanding it was, in fact. And obviously we have to thank our donators of the community, because every firework the money was donated by someone, whether it was a business or from $5,000 all the way down to $10 from a private citizen. So I think that's a unique thing in any community, and I want to recognize that to all the folks, and especially, again, the agencies, the golf course, the new fixed base operator at the Oroville Airport, Paul, help me with the last name.
Armoral.
Armoral, thank you.
Amaral,
thank you.
Armoral.
I want to make sure to mention that because it was a community event. We're guessing around 10,000 at least circled the airport to watch. That's a guess, but that's a pretty good guess given the fact that we were all in a very large line waiting traffic-wise to get out of there that went about 45 minutes, I think. But again, I want to say it's an agency event that so many participate in, and there's a pre-work before, the day of, and then the day after. So people like Recology bringing all the waste totes out there and the portable bathrooms and all that. It's just a great event, and I know from speaking from Rotary, we appreciate everyone's efforts to help out, and it's one of those nice things about a community. We really get things done if we need to. So the celebration of the 4th of July is, I think it's the 239th one if my math is correct. But anyway, that was great. I just wanted to comment and thank all the agencies participating, not forgetting the Oroville Chamber of Commerce, who coordinated all the fundraising. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to comment on that as well. I was there. I was there for the fly-in and the fireworks, and absolutely wonderful. Big difference from this year, from last year. Last year was a little chaotic. Everybody was trying to put something together and not really knowing which direction to go, but it turned out safe last year. But this year was much more organized, and I would like to, the facilitator of this fly-in and the car show, and that is Gonzalo Pee Wee Curiel, and he puts his heart and soul into this community and doesn't collect a dime. So I would really like to give him credit for everything he does, just an absolute heart for the city. And the turnout was phenomenal. The amazing participation in the car show and the airplanes. He has a lot of friends. So just thank you, Pee Wee. We appreciate everything you've done, and to everyone that Councilmember Pittman had mentioned. I'm also a Rotarian, and really appreciate, he spearheads this thing, and I appreciate all the hard work that Councilmember Pittman does, or Rotarian Pittman, as they'll say. He has that hat. But Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to just add to that. Pee Wee is an amazing asset to this community. And I just wanted to thank him from the bottom of my heart, because if it wasn't for Pee Wee, it would not have happened. He's the driver, really, yeah. So thank you, Pee Wee. I'm sure you're listening. And I just wanted to add those comments, and along with, an affirmative on everything that's been shared. Thank you.
No other comments from this council? Future agenda items? Having none. Administration reports. Mr. Legrone.
I have none. I'm going to give my time to Mr. Lando. He has some information the council is going to be interested in.
This is fairly complex, and we'll be back to you. But the state has changed the rules on the California Environmental Quality Act. It used to be that you measured road improvements based on level of service. And so if a development was built and it needed more capacity, frankly, you built more roadway. Urban areas could not meet that standard. So what the state has done is they've changed the standard to vehicle miles traveled. And what that translates to is buses, bikes, and pedestrians, which you can visualize in San Francisco or some of those outlying communities. Places in the valley simply cannot meet this standard. And the problem with that is that we have a number of home developers who'd like to build. In fact, we have some major commercial developers that are at least talking to the community. So what staff's going to come back with for your consideration is updating our general plan and at the same time updating the related environmental impact report. For an individual to prepare an environmental impact report costs somewhere between $50,000 to millions, literally, with no exaggeration. What we're proposing is if we can prepare one for a new general plan and have an overriding consideration which talks about the production of jobs and housing, we can then address this vehicle miles traveled. So I would expect probably in a month to come back with a recommendation to update the general plan and prepare a new CEQA document. And that's the information.
Thank you. Chief Tens?
I have a question of
Councilmember
Mr. Lando about that. So when we propose that, are we talking additional cost involved in our CEQA analysis to update that? Or, I mean, what kind of ballpark are we talking here?
Don't know. Staff and Don specifically are working on getting those estimates. I can tell you that it would be considerably cheaper than having each individual project do it.
Oh, sure.
And we have been pushed back in approvals because of this. But we will come back. I mean, that's obviously part of the answer, is what will it cost. But I would say from my perspective, the city needs to do it. There are people waiting to build homes. There are, frankly, some folks waiting to bring some major jobs in. And with this restriction, they can't do it. Simply can't do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. I want our taxpayers to hear that answer, so thank you.
And whatever number he brings you, by the way, and whatever number Don brings you will be the number, assuming that you don't get challenged on it in litigation.
Correct.
It is a head scratching. It is an endeavor in truly mind numbing activities, but.
So I have a question as well, and we would have to make an adjustment in our general fund budget.
You would have to, I don't know if you'd have to make an adjustment in the budget. You would have to find some dollars for it somewhere. If you already have some dollars allocated in a category that would work, then you wouldn't have to adjust the budget at all. And again, I have now quickly exhausted my knowledge of the budget specifically. So
let me add that the Butte County Association of Governments hired fear and peers to analyze what this means, and they have pages of potential mitigation measures, 90% of which are not feasible in a valley community. Most of it has to do with transit, using bikes and walking.
And Councilperson Goodson, to answer your question regarding the budgeting, when we bring this back, we'll bring it back with a proposed funding source for this, so you know where it will have to come from and where out of. And yes, we may need to amend the budget.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Don, with a W.
We are still awaiting the final draft of the Municipal Services Review, or the MSR. We're hoping to have that this week or next. Also, as staff previously applied for the statewide parks funding grants to finish phase 2 of Hewitt Park and the enhancements at Bedrock Park and the Levee Trail. We did recently receive a site visit from the statewide parks program analyst, and so our applications are still under consideration for award for those projects. So I just wanted to update you there as to where we are.
Thank you. Mr. Legron, as Chief of Police, do you have any announcements? Is anybody hiding out there? Kenny Malone? Mr. Attorney?
Yeah, council members, I will send to, Mr. Mayor, I'll send to you and the council members a couple of documents and a link to a website on the ISO rating. It's actually called the Fire Suppression Rating Schedule. It does give as Councilmember Pittman noted in some of his discussions, it does give you the calculations of how many points each category will earn you. I will tell you, I've been through these documents several times, and much like the FICO scores, I can't tell you exactly how many points will equal a Class 1 rating or Class 2 or Class 3. That I haven't found it yet, and I've looked for it extensively. That may be one of those trademarked secret sauce kind of numbers that they don't want to disclose to you as to how they calculate it. They will tell you exactly how many points each category is worth, and the 70-page document I'll send you will literally break down every one of those categories into major subcategories. But how many points equals a ISO 1 rating versus 2 versus 3, I can't tell you. I'll keep looking for it. And if I find it, I'll certainly pass it along. But anyway, I will get you information that I have, which is what matters in their calculations. That'll give you at least some basis to determine, okay, are we doing well? Are we, are there large areas where we could improve? I'll send it to all of you.
Thank you. Ruth? Okay, with that, we will adjourn until July 20th, 2021 at 4 p.m. Meeting adjourned.